how to acquire property if you guys are like spouse together, married together. Is it okay for you guys to acquire property together or separately?
Now these days, people tend to say that, oh, lawyer, it's not beneficial for men to marry because a woman can come and divorce you and take half of your property. But that's not true though, because there are laws that regulate these affairs. The court will look into the fact of the matter, especially upon divorce, to determine whether or not the marriage was properly done, and whether or not the right that you want was fairly approved.
Lawyer, this one you have given me. This one you have given me like the nitty-gritties of what. Hello guys, this is Billcotey from Billcotey Properties, and today we are about to start the very first episode of Legal Matters with Billcotey. I have head of legal here at Billcotey. I have with him here for us to have a wonderful conversation, warm conversation that very interactive with our head of legal here. I would like him to introduce himself and we keep the conversation rolling.
Yeah. Hello guys, my name is Eddo. I'm a legal practitioner,
right?
And I've been working with Billcotey's properties for a period of time, and it's an honor to be here on stage.
Thank you for honoring my invitation.
You're welcome.
All right. So today we are going to have a conversation on how to acquire property if you guys are like spouse together, married together. How would you guys acquire property, and whether is it okay for you guys to acquire property together or separately? That's the main conversation we are going to have. So first and foremost, I would like to ask him, what is marriage? What is the definition of marriage? What is marriage all about?
Yes, so with marriages, we are looking at a particular union, usually between a man and a woman. With other jurisdictions, the disadvantages or the differences are wide apart. There could be several groups of people who could enter into such unions. But in the jurisdiction of Ghana, a marriage is a union between a husband and a wife. Now, there are various forms of marriages. There is the customary marriage, there is the marriage under the ordinance. There's even the Mohammedan marriages. That's for the Islamic group of people. So with reference to marriage, it's just not an ordinary contract. It is a legally binding agreement. Once the union happens, at law, there are certain rights and duties and responsibilities that are attached to the particular couple. So the husband, receives certain rights and duties and responsibilities. And so the wife also receives certain rights and duties and responsibilities. So the marriage isn't just entered into by a voluntary agreement. There are other factors that we have to look at. Even under the customary marriages, there are families involved. So you don't just marry by telling someone I love you. You have to, engage the family of the person. So once the family of the person is engaged according to the custom that the parties come under, then it can lead to a formal marriage. And most marriages must be registered. So in Ghana, we have the Marriages Ordinance, Cap 127. So the marriage is regulated by law. And it states that the marriage must be registered, So even if it's a customary marriage, you have to go to the registry to put the details on paper that you guys have now had a union. And also with other marriages, like the marriage under the ordinance, unlike the customary marriage, for the marriage under the ordinance, it is a man and a woman permanently. So you cannot even marry another spouse, until the other party dies or you have a formal divorce or nullification of the marriage. So with the marriage under the ordinance, what then happens is that it's more or less like the English marriage, or what people usually refer to as the white wedding. So the customary marriage is referred to as the engagement. But in law, just marrying under customs, makes it a clear, fully binding marriage. But then most people just refer to it as an engagement because they look at it as the first stage to the main marriage or the white wedding, usually the Christians. So when the white wedding is done, for that one, there are legal restrictions against people who enter into the white wedding and those who can officiate the white wedding. So for the white wedding, it must be at a licensed place. It must also be with or officiated by a licensed individual. I hope you got it. And that's how so the and that is how it's conducted. So with the formal ordinance marriage, a licensed priest and also a licensed officiator of the marriage. Also, you can even marry by just walking into the registry, coming with your parents or witnesses to go and register the marriage. So there is this formal marriage that is known as the court wedding, whereby the parties can just enter into the registry and then tell the registrar that look, we want to marry, and so we have our witnesses here. Maybe we have a parent each we want to marry, and they will just sign the documents on paper, but then it must be published. There must be a publication of bonds to inform the public that these two people are coming to marry. So if there is any issues you have against their marriage, then you should contact the registry. So the point of law is that marriage is not just an ordinary union. It's not just cohabitation. It's not just a relationship. It's actually a legal affair that is regulated by law. Because when the parties separate, or the children that come out of the marriage, all these people accrue certain rights and responsibilities, right, and benefits even under the marriage. That won't be accrued if it's just a mere social relationship. So the point of law is that marriage isn't an ordinary contract, and it's not an ordinary relationship. There are legal matters that regulate the marriage, and most of the time it depends on the type of marriage you are coming under. But then it must be registered, and you don't just opt out of the marriage. There are certain processes for opting out, like a formal divorce, or under customary law, a formal separation of the parties under their customary rights.
Lawyer, this is what you have given me. This is what you have given me, like the nitty-gritties of what.
So because many people enter into legal affairs or like these social like relationships and stuff, and then they realize that more or less it wasn't a legal marriage under law. For example, you enter into a white wedding, but the officiator, it was just some person that you found on the road to come and officiate your wedding. It won't be a legal marriage. I hope you got it. So these are many factors that lead to what are the main elements of a marriage.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Are biased by nature, but I want to ask you: do you really need to make it legal marriage? Do you really need to make it legal?
Well, that's a very important question. But you see, the fact is clear that when you like someone and want to enter into a union with a person, you are not bound to make that thing legal. So obviously, if you want to enter into a union with someone of the opposite sex, there is nothing that compels you to make it legal. So why is it that people enter into marriages? There are other factors that govern it, especially when children come in, especially when they've been cohabiting for a long period of time. So you realize that even a marriage can be imposed on you by law. Under certain customs, if you've cohabited with someone for a long period of time, it can be deemed to be a traditional marriage. I hope you got it. So the fact of the law is that, well, more or less, you have to make sure that it is a voluntary affair you are entering into. And although you don't need to have a marriage formal or anything like that of that sort, when you want to protect your rights and interests under that relationship, it's best to marry. Okay. So there will be certain pressure on one person in the relationship to marry the other, or to accept the proposal in order, because the people know their rights that accrue under the marriage. Now these days, people tend to say that, oh, lawyer, it's not beneficial for men to marry because a woman can come and divorce you and take half of your property. But that's not true though, because there are laws that regulate these affairs. So if someone enters into the marriage to cheat you, I hope you get it. If someone enters into the marriage to cheat you, it won't be regarded as a fair marriage. The court will look into the fact of the matter, especially upon divorce. Under the Matrimonial Causes Act, they'll look into the matter to determine whether or not the marriage was properly done, and whether or not the right that you want was fairly accrued. So, well, parties are not compelled to enter into marriages, but you have to protect the relationship. So if you want a long-binding relationship with someone of the opposite sex, if you want to protect your interests, especially dealing with property, you need to make sure that what you are doing is regulated by law.
We will get there. We will get to the property aspect of it. But before we get there, look. Can you just structure it into two lanes for me? Advantages of you marrying legally and the disadvantages of it.
Okay.
Can I get the advantages of it?
Okay.
If you want to marry legally, like
right.
legally,
So
yeah.
there are many advantages to marrying legally.
Right.
And even from this onset, I'll look at it as a relationship between a husband and wife.
That's
So
a
not
male and a female.
a male and female.
In
yes.
our jurisdiction.
jurisdiction. Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
But even other jurisdictions now they have different forms of marriages. But
Right.
now we are looking at the relationship between a male and a female. Look at
Absolutely.
this example. You know that in Ghana, people can even marry to go outside as a couple, like to travel for
Right.
traveling reasons.
Right.
There's a reason or there is a notion behind that. When people marry under law, especially under the ordinance, they are considered as one. I hope you got it. That is a very, very important advantage. You are considered as one, a proper union. So even for certain issues dealing with citizenship, right, you'll be considered as a person who has the right to obtain the citizenship of another country just because you are married to the person. Now, another advantage of entering into a legal marriage is that you protect the affairs and the interests of those who come out of the marriage, the children. Right? These people are innocent, and it doesn't matter the relationship you have with the other person, but most of the time you wouldn't. Everyone prefers not to have a child out of wedlock. Right? Nowadays, people go and adopt and have raised children on their own, but everyone usually prefers to have a child under a union.
Yes.
So it's more or less like even a biological.
It's
factor.
more secure.
It's more secure. I hope you got it. You want to protect the interest of your offspring, because you, as the husband, you don't know what happens to you when you pass on. But then when you marry and you pass on, you know that your wife is legally obligated to take care of the children and the offspring. So in that sense, it's very important to understand that legally marrying, okay, creates certain beneficial rights and interests.
Right.
Now, what are the disadvantages to it? The issue of joint property comes in, and the issue of joint interest comes in. And I think we'll go into that. Yeah, further. Yes, because
we'll go into that.
There are two things. Love relationship now becomes a problem when money and property is involved. I hope you got it.
Absolutely.
Another disadvantage is, how do you navigate your personal affairs as a person, like a husband or a wife? Because now that you are married, even the way you navigate your personal affairs becomes an issue. Your reputation becomes an issue. So someone who is interested in having a free life, having as many relationships as possible, won't be interested in entering into a legal marriage. Because under a legal marriage, they can have an issue with you when you are committing adultery. They can actually go to court and say, hey, my husband is committing adultery. Pay me this compensation. Separate us. You get it? So if you're a man who isn't interested in being legally constrained from enjoying, number one, the fruits of your labor, your money, from enjoying, number two, your personal rights and liberties, then you wouldn't be, pushed to entering into a legal marriage.
Absolutely.
So that is one disadvantage. You are constrained in how you do certain things because you are married. Right. So what about not marrying? Right. I think indirectly we've touched on it because obviously if you are not married, you are a free person. No one is obligated to marry.
Correct.
You can even go and like adopt a child, raise a child on your own. You can even have relations with the opposite sex, have a child, and decide that I want to raise the child on my own. I don't want to have any relationship with the other person. I don't want to enter into any formal marriage. I want to protect my interests as a person. I hope you got it. So more or less, these are the pros and cons of marriages and all that. But everyone wants to protect his interests. That's why most people want to enter into legal or legally binding social relationship. That is the marriage. Yes.
Okay, so let me just touch on this. What are some of what is the legal implication of purchasing a house or a property together as a couple? Well, there's a notion that when you purchase a property, it is for both of you, is for the two automatically. Is that it?
Well, that is also a general notion.
Yeah, that's a general.
So there are two things, right? In respect of purchasing a property, right? Two things. We have individual property, and then we have jointly owned property.
Okay.
So when I'm married to my wife, okay, it is assumed under law that any property that we obtain is jointly owned.
Jointly owned.
That is even under the Constitution. That
No,
is,
can you take it again? Can you take that
yes,
again?
so Article 22 of the Constitution says that
Right.
when a party, any property that is obtained by the parties in the marriage, during the marriage,
Okay.
is jointly owned property. It's assumed to be jointly owned property.
From both
yes,
parties.
both parties.
Okay.
So this one isn't a male or
you mean it's from both parties?
Yes,
isn't it?
from both parties.
Okay,
so even
okay,
if a
absolutely.
wife acquires property, she buys land, she even builds on the land. During the marriage, there's a presumption
Right.
that it is jointly owned. Right.
Okay.
And I'll explain the reasons for that particular presumption.
Right.
Yes. So now this issue came out of the, as I told you, the legal union between the persons and the fact that people are regarded as one when they marry. Right. Now, when a man and a woman marry, okay, more or less, it is deemed that the man works, the woman also works, okay, most of the time.
Okay.
Or sometimes the woman can decide to step back a bit and raise the family.
Right.
Now, the issue is that we don't want one party to have an advantage over the other. That this woman spent 15 years of her life taking care of the family, only to end up losing everything just because the man acquired properties for his own. So there is a presumption in the highest law of the land.
Yeah, but listen, lawyer. See, when a woman also stays at home for 15 years, looking after the family, the kids are for both also.
Yes.
So you, the woman, you gain some form of some form of advantage also, as to compare to the man. So the kids, obviously, you guys are not splitting the kids, but why is it that the man, the man's property is what we are splitting? You know, that's the notion actually. That's the main notion out there. Because because I've never really heard a woman's property being split in two.
Oh, they've done that a lot.
Really?
Yes, they've done that a lot. Trust me, it's even in the law, the Matrimonial Causes Act.
Okay.
Right? It says that the fact, they'll not look at whether it's male or female. They'll look at the income, what the parties earn within the marriage. When they come to split properties, especially upon divorce, and even the man can apply for maintenance from his wife.
Oh, I see.
Yes, so there are cases where popular celebrities marry. The lady is a very rich popular celebrity, and then she marries a normal individual, like a man who is not equally as rich. The man can apply for maintenance when they divorce because he has brought his level of living to a standard that he cannot afford on his own now. So more or less, the issue comes out as a result of the fact that under normal relations with both genders, that is the male and the female, everyone assumes that the females are the ones who suffer in the marriage.
I don't do too much work. You are the guy who goes out and work and
then bring money. So of course she's also bearing you kids. She's also running the house. So why wouldn't you let your wife to enjoy some? That kind of thing. 50-50. Yes. So there was this thing known as presumption of equality.
Okay.
There were many people who presumed that when they divorced, split the property 50-50.
50-50.
Yes. It was a very strong argument until the Supreme Court said in a recent case, AG, that no, if you marry, you can actually have your own individual property. Okay. So how do you get your own individual property as a man or as a woman, right?
Yes,
For example, I marry and my parents give me a gift, and that gift is a house. Why would my wife claim that we have to share the property 50-50? It's my personal property because it was given to me as a gift. I marry and I take a personal loan. So I go to the bank and take a personal loan and attach it to maybe my personal, assets that I had before the marriage. So why is it that when I use this personal loan to build a business or to build a house, my wife should have 50-50? I hope you are getting me. It's my personal loan. I paid the loan for my own resources. Probably I had property before I married. So, number one, property before marriage is not split 50-50, or it's not split amongst the couple. It's not deemed to be jointly owned. Any property obtained before the marriage. Yes. Now,
it's for you and
you alone.
Okay.
So now most men will decide to rather obtain all the properties before the marriage. Yeah, because before the marriage, because they know that once they marry, whatever they obtain after, they will say that the wife contributed to it. I hope you got it. So property obtained before the marriage is not presumed to be joint property. The law is property obtained within or during the marriage is presumed to be joint. So it is a presumption. So there is this word, rebuttable. You can change the presumption. You can prove to the court that no, this presumption doesn't work for us. Why? Because maybe I got this house that you see behind us, maybe as a gift. So this beautiful house is a gift. So why is it that my wife now wants it 50-50? Me, I've been working and I got a gift. So why does my
if
wife?
if you want
Yeah.
if lawyer, if you want this house as a gift to your wife or your spouse,
Mhm.
kindly hit us on your screens.
We'll do that. We'll
The
do that.
telephone numbers will be on your screens right about now.
Yes.
And this is the 7-Eleven. This is a very beautiful property we've been able to put together, and it is okay.
All right.
Walking away, your words are lost on me.
Okay, so welcome back from the commercial break. Lawyer, I want to ask you this question. What kind of merit does the court use to allocate ownership of properties? Yeah.
All right. So that's a very, very good question. Now, usually this question comes before the court when the parties are divorcing, or probably there is a disagreement as to the sharing of the property.
Absolutely.
Right. So first of all, as I stated, under the Constitution, Article 22, there is the presumption of joint ownership of the property.
Okay.
But in Article 22, it says every spouse has an equitable right or interest in the property. So the issue equitable doesn't mean equal. This one equality,
Right.
because it doesn't mean equality. It means
Okay.
equity. So equity means that the particular right or interest you have in the property is based on more or less factors like your contribution to the property,
Right.
factors like how long the parties were married, factors like which particular party was even working on the property, which particular party has a vested interest in the property.
Okay.
So, for example, if the man acquires the property, that is the land, and the lady builds upon the land, then they can assess the value of the whole building as a whole and decide that, look, under the circumstances, it should be a 50-50 sharing.
Okay.
I hope you got me.
Okay.
But then most of the time, it isn't a 50-50 sharing. There are so many factors that the court will consider. So the court will look at the length of the marriage, right?
Okay.
And also the particular aspect of the substantial financial contribution each party made to the marriage.
Right.
So a party should allocate evidence or provide evidence to the court that, look, these were the payments I made towards acquiring the property.
Yeah.
I hope you got it. These were the contributions I made towards acquiring the property. The court will also look at other factors such as third-party contributions. So many people build property with money or resources from banks, and then also money and resources from family members. So who are the people who were the third party? If my family members contributed to the property, it's not going to be shared between I and you equally. Right. Because my family members will also have an interest in the property. I probably paid them. I probably borrowed money from them, or they gifted me the property. So there is the issue too with gifts. Now the issue with gifts is that if a family member gifts you the property, then probably the other spouse will not have any interest in the property at all.
Okay.
I hope you got it.
Yes. So talking about gifts, I heard that when spouse, let's say you and your wife, when you gift your wife something, it is for her permanently. But when your wife gives you something, she can actually reclaim it back in terms when you get to court or something like that. Is that the case?
So there was a presumption of advancement, right? Okay. There is a principle in law. It's also a rebuttable presumption. Okay. There's a principle that now, as I stated, between genders, the male and the female, there is a bit of more support leaning towards the feminine side. And there are certain bases for that, historical basis for that. This was because culturally and socially, the women were deemed to be more or less the caretakers of the home. Right. So if a man gives a property to his wife, it is deemed to be a permanent gift. Okay. And that when they divorce, the wife is not obligated to return the property to the husband. Really? It's the same with the kids. Really? So there's a presumption that when you gift property to your wife and kids, it's permanent. It's permanent. You can no longer come and claim that you are divorcing, so give me my property back. Okay. In fact, it even goes same with what's known as courtship. When you gift a property to a lady during courtship, and later on you guys divorce, then it's very hard to claim that, I was taking it for the benefit of courtship. So now that we are not courting, let me just take my property back. No, it depends on the value of the property too. Okay. So the point, of law is that there is
so does it? Sorry to cut you. No, does it mean that on social media we see people go to their ex-girlfriend's home, taking their fridge and all that they bought for the girlfriend. Does it mean that it's illegal? They can actually,
Well, yes.
you can actually sue.
Yes. So it depends on the value of the property, right? That's why I stated that marriage protects your interest. Because if you marry, whatever you do within the marriage is more or less governed by the agreement between the parties and also some legal provisions. But for dating, or let's say cohabitation, etc., when the man makes a promise to give the woman property, that promise is not binding on him. I hope you got it.
Yeah.
So if a man promises his girlfriend property, it's not binding on him. If a man gives his girlfriend property and maybe they separate, it depends on the facts of the case. So how did you give to the lady the property? Usually out of appreciation or courtship, you gave her the property. But sometimes the court can decide that they give you the property to manage for them. So a boyfriend can give you give the lady the fridge, the shop, can open a shop for a lady, etc. But then it is a beneficial ownership. So he is the beneficial owner. He makes it clear that from the relationship, this property is for me. I'm just giving it to you to manage for me. And any interest you are getting, use it to manage yourself too. I hope you got me. So it becomes like an investment.
So he can actually take it back. That's what
he can actually take it back if he can show that he was the beneficial owner. That it wasn't given to it, he wasn't giving it to her as a a full gift. Giving her all the rights or interest in the property. It was more or less, giving it to her as a particular sort of investment. Or probably a loan or something, like giving the property to her in her name, but he has the beneficial ownership. Right. So there are many cases like that. You give your house to the girlfriend and she goes to sell it. You can call the court. You can you can go to court, sue her, and tell them to return your property to you because you are the beneficial owner of the property. Maybe you gave it to her to manage on your behalf. It wasn't an outright gift. Yes. So there are so many factors involved in this determination.
Okay, let me ask this question. Instances where you guys are married, one party dies. What happens? Is it automatically? Is it 50-50? Is the property automatically shifted to the other spouse? Is that the
That's
case?
also a very good question because now these matters come up legally a lot. Right. So now there are two types. We have death with a will and death without a will. So that is the testate and intestate. So intestate means you died without a will, and testate means that you died with a will. So a will is more or less an expression of your intent, right, of sharing the property. So someone who owns property can share the particular property in the way or manner that he deems fit. So a man who is married can decide that this is my property and I want to share it 30% to my wife, 20% to my firstborn, 30% to my secondborn. I hope you got it. And then 20% to my parents. He can decide to share it in any way he deems fit. The only law is that at least if you have property and you have a wife that you are living, just give her a sort of maintenance. She can apply for maintenance. So from the property, she wants a bit of maintenance. So you are not legally obligated to give your wife 50-50 share in your property upon death. And your wife is not also obligated to do same. I hope you got it. The property upon death can be shared according to the will, the full expression of the man or the woman, the person who died, the deceased person. But for the intestate, then there's an issue because intestate means the person died without a will, right? So we have the intestate succession law, PNDCL 111. It says that the wife and children are entitled to a portion of the property. So they have percentages that if you marry and you have one child, here's how the property should be shared. If you married and you died without a child, here's how the property should be shared. So in this case, there is a fixed percentage that will go to the wife, fixed percentage that will go to the children. Even if the person has like a parent, there'll be a percentage that goes to the parent. So that happens when you die without a will. But if you die with a will, you fully express how the property should be shared. Yes.
Okay. So what happens also if the demise party was also owing before dying? Does it mean that the parties also alive would have equal distribution of
The liability, the debt.
liabilities. Yes.
Well,
Does it mean that?
well, there are also factors that pertain to this, right?
Okay.
So if you have a property
Okay.
and you die, right, the property is part of the estate of the deceased person.
Okay.
So before they share the estate of the deceased person, they remove all the debts. I hope you got it. So if a man dies and says, you know, I'm giving 50% of my property to my wife and 50% to my children, they will remove all the debt first before they now calculate the 50%. I hope you got it. Yes, so that you will not come and impose liability on the kids first. The liability will be imposed on the estate of the deceased person.
Okay.
I hope you got it. Now, if the estate of the deceased person can't pay for the debt, then that's it. He is dead. I hope you are getting it.
Yeah.
The particular debt will not automatically transfer to their children unless there are express intentions on an agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, that provides for debt sharing or transfer of the debt. So usually, let's say for bank loans, the building is a collateral. So if they cannot, you know, get the money back from you because you are deceased, they'll actually come and attach the building as you know, they'll sell the building and then they'll use the proceeds to pay back the debt.
Okay.
I hope you are getting me. So the estate of the person, you don't share the property before you pay the debt. You pay the debt before you share the property of the person. I hope you got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I want to ask this question. Can property be sold by one party? Can property be sold by one party, especially when you guys have joint ownership?
Yes.
Yes. Can it be sold by one party without the other person knowing?
The answer is no.
Okay.
Right. Now, this is under the Lands Act 1036.
Okay.
Right. Under the Lands Act 1036. So the Lands Act provides under Section 47 that even if you want to deal with the property, you need the express consent or the written consent of the other party.
Okay.
Right. So that means that if you want to deal with a particular type of property, you need the permission of the spouse. Right. You need the permission of the spouse. But they also say that the spouse should not withhold permission unreasonably. So when you ask your spouse for permission to deal with the property and the reasons are valid, you really need to sell the property, you need the permission of your spouse, but your spouse cannot say no. She will not agree if your reason is reasonable. And justifiable. So that means that you are simply informing the spouse that more or less I am, you know, dealing with this property. So I need your permission to deal with the property. And the court will say that once the spouse was informed, and the spouse decided not to give consent unreasonably, then the court will order that the property should be dealt with. So yes, you cannot deal with the property on your own. You need the informed consent of the spouse, right? But that consent cannot be unreasonably withheld. It's under the Lands Act 1036.
Okay. Okay. So if you're watching this program, we are shooting this program from the 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is a new property that Billcotey has been able to put together. It's up for grabs. It's on the market right now. So kindly call us on your screens as you see it. We have a lawyer here. There's an in-house lawyer here. He's taking all the questions. He's on the hot seat actually today. And we are going to bombard him with a lot of questions because I know a lot of my clients have these questions unanswered. Now, we are going to talk about prenuptial agreements and postnuptial agreements also. So I want him to touch on that. You know, sometimes, you know, you have to do the prenup and all that. I want him to talk about the prenup a little. Let me understand. Because me myself, I'm not even getting it wrong.
So now the prenuptial agreement, right, more or less entering into a marriage, right? You tie the knot, and there is an agreement that the parties can enter into before they tie the knot. Now, under general circumstances, such agreements are not legally binding, unless they fulfill certain criteria of law. So a prenuptial agreement is a contract. That contract must be binding before you can come and enforce that particular contract. So it is a contract that expressly states how the property should be distributed upon dissolution of the marriage or upon divorce. So before we marry, we can expressly enter into agreement that says that, look,
Yeah.
These are my properties,
properties.
before the marriage.
Okay.
These are your properties before the marriage.
Okay.
When I marry, any property that I obtain is not joint property.
Okay.
We've agreed on that.
We've agreed on that.
And we've agreed that we will have a separate account, right?
Okay.
And that when they are sharing, the property upon divorce,
Right.
you wouldn't have an automatic 50-50 share in the interest or in the property of the other person. So it is an
Okay.
agreement. But there are so many factors that regulate this agreement. Even prenuptial agreement was something from the developed states.
Right.
It's not really common in Ghana, but now it's becoming common, obviously, because wealth of people are increasing. And as I said, people want to protect their interest, their legal interest, and their property. Also because people don't trust marriages anymore, like in the past.
Yeah.
You cannot even trust your spouse to give the property to the children.
But I mean, this is a very sensitive topic that we are talking about.
Yes.
These things can even break relationships, as you're saying.
Yes. So more or less, even
but it's better for you to have this conversation from the very primary stage before it goes south.
Because a lady, and I'm just using a lady as an example, a lady will enter into a marriage thinking that, as I said, this beautiful house behind me, if I marry my wife, right, she will come and say, wow, it's ours.
It's ours.
When we divorce. So they even issue threats. I'll leave you and take your property. I'll take 50%. So the men most of the time want to protect their interests, and they say, look, before I marry you, let me let you know that this beautiful house behind me, I got it on my own.
You got it.
So I'm not going to share it 50%. That one works because obviously you got it on your own.
Absolutely.
But the issue with the prenuptial is when you got the property within the marriage.
Right.
Because the constitution is saying joint ownership.
Right.
Right. The constitution is saying joint ownership. But then you are telling your wife that, no, we don't want this joint ownership. Let's have an agreement to regulate it. So that agreement must be legally binding, usually drafted by a lawyer, right? A lawyer or a legal expert who knows the technicalities involved. Because it's very easy for someone to say this agreement is not binding, it's not legally approved. Why is that so? There is something known as intention to create legal relations.
Okay.
The court have made it clear that any contract dealing with a husband and wife is not binding.
Okay.
It's presumed not to be binding. It's a social contract.
Social contract.
Yes, it's not binding. So when you take a contract between a husband and wife to court, the court will not enforce it. Unless you can show to the court that this contract is legally binding, that we had the intention to make the contract.
But how can you prove? How can you prove? I hope you've been watching this video for a while now. Billcotey, you've been following Billcotey for a while now. If you want a property to buy, kindly download the app, Billcotey Realty app on Google Play Store and App Store. And there are a lot of properties out there, over 500 properties on that app. Grab yours now. We've been able to roll in something special for our clients abroad and even here in Ghana. If you want Billcotey to build a house for you, you have trust issues here in Ghana. You have your family and friends, some of them, Charlie, they are doing long things with you. You can just reach me on buildmeahousebillcotey@gmail.com. Just send me an email there and we will sort you out. In every construction, we have the very first phase. Okay, that's the conceptual phase of construction, and we've been able to put up a package together. Okay, a package together. We have the very first package, which is the blueprint vision, that comprises of floor plan and 3D layout. Okay, just floor plan and 3D layout. If you want something quick and easy, we sort you out there. And we have the design dimension, that is a full architectural one, drawings, engineering drawings, and we have the 3D exterior also design also in place, and we have the building quantities also. That's the build quantities also in addition to it. And the very last one is complete reality. Complete reality is full architectural, engineering, mechanical, electrical drawings, 3D interior and exterior pictures, and we have a walkthrough video tour also for you. Okay, so you have to select whether if you want the blueprint vision, design dimension, or you would want the complete reality. Okay, complete reality. Thank you. Continue the video. Watch that. Okay. Lawyer, what are the elements that will make the contract binding?
Yes. So first of all,
Yeah.
for such a social contract between the husband and wife, more importantly, it must be put in writing
Okay.
because it's a matter of evidence. And the court is likely to deduce what are the terms of the contract when the contract is written clearly.
Okay.
So more or less, if it is a by word of mouth contract, you know, the parties will just go back and forth trying to prove, unless they are witnesses. But in that instance, the most important element is that that contract must be in writing, so that the court will be able to look at certain terms on paper to be able to enforce those terms. Secondly, too, the contract must be usually drafted by a legal expert. It will attach some sort of credibility and integrity to the contract.
Okay.
So, you know, these prenuptial agreements are also dealing with properties. And even under the Lands Act, right, it says that any transfer or conveyance must be written or drafted by a legal professional. So with the prenuptial agreement, what you want to do is that you want to ensure that you have all the technical advice sorted. I hope you got it. So every technicality involved in that contract must be placed in writing by an expert.
So it can be disputed in court that it wasn't licensed more or wasn't certified by a legal practitioner.
Well, the parties can go, if the parties are able to express all the terms clearly, and the court to interpret it clearly, then they are good to go. They are good to go. But the issue is that
even those written documents,
how do you know the legalities and legalities of a prenuptial agreement? I hope you are getting me. You see, as I'm speaking here, I'm trying to like express more information on the legalities of the prenuptial. So it means that many people, 99% of people, will not know what goes into it. They'll just draft a normal agreement and that is it. I hope you got it. So a legal expert will advise you on what to draft and how to go about the terms and legalities of the contract. Another thing is that usually there must be a clear expression on the contract that the parties intend to go to court when there is a dispute. So they intend to take all legal measures when there is a dispute. Okay, it's so very, very important.
It should be part of the contract. Yes, it should be written.
Yes, there can be an expression. So people will say, we intend this contract to be legally binding, and we will take court action to enforce the terms of that particular contract. Okay. I hope you are getting the picture. So it means that the parties are making it clear that this isn't just a marriage contract. This isn't just, you know, a normal promise and fail thing. It is a clear legally binding agreement. So on the contract, we express our intention to take the matter to court. If you know the other party is disputing the terms of the contract or doesn't want to enforce the terms or even breaches the terms. Another thing is that usually there are witnesses involved. The contract is signed in the presence of witnesses so that people can come and testify that this is what the husband and wife agreed to, and you know, prior to the marriage, and both of them knew that these were the official terms that they agreed to. So it will be very, very hard to dispute. How we got it. So contract must
so that
be in writing.
It wouldn't be more of like one party was under duress.
Yes. So basic elements like undue influence, force, duress, you know, lack of consent to enter into the contract, capacity, all those things under general contract must be there. But then you have to show more evidence that this is not just a mere social contract, that the presumption of lack of intention is rebutted. So now you have to show to the court that you have the intention to enforce the terms of the agreement. So if you show to the court that you have the intention to enforce the terms of the agreement, then the court will enforce it. So I think 5 elements. It must be written. It must be signed. There must be witnesses. Usually it must be drafted by a lawyer or legal person or someone who can give expert advice on how to, you know, draft those particular terms. But one of the most important aspects, and the last aspect, is that there must be a clear statement in the contract that the parties intend to make this particular contract binding on them, and they will take legal action for any breach of the particular contract. So this is how parties, before they enter into marriage, can expressly, you know, regulate and agree
This is
Yeah,
prenuptial agreement.
And yes, some are enforceable. Not most of them are not enforceable because the court says that it's just a mere social contract.
Right.
But in order to make it enforceable, there are certain legalities
that you have to put in place.
It's an agreement.
Okay.
And generally speaking, every agreement is enforceable if it complies with the rules of contract.
Okay. So that's prenup.
Yes.
Postnup. What is that?
So there are two types,
Okay.
Within the marriage, right?
Okay.
As I said, so after the nuptial occasion, after they've gotten married and all that, first of all, now you cannot call it a prenuptial agreement.
Yes.
So they've already married.
They are already married.
They are already married, right? So in that sense, it is after marriage.
After marriage.
So it means that now, even if there is no prenuptial agreement, parties who know they are going to divorce from the trend of their relationship can actually decide to enter into an agreement. The first rule is that a contract between a husband and wife within marriage is not deemed to be binding. It's presumed not to be binding, right? Unless the presumption is rebutted by evidence.
Okay.
So usually, for the postnuptial agreement, it is because the parties are not living in amity. So they are able to show that we are no longer friends.
Okay.
I hope you are getting me. We are no longer together as husband and wife. We want to separate. Right. Some people are living in separate houses.
Right.
Some of them they deserted each other.
Right.
Some of them they are actively cheating on each other.
Right.
I hope you got it.
Right.
So in that sense, they are saying that look, I bought this beautiful house, but you knew that we are separated. Right. So let's make an agreement concerning this house. That this house is mine. Then the lady also say, okay, you two, this building here at this estate is mine. Then the man will say, okay, then this property here that we acquired together, you give it to me. Then you to take this car. I hope you are getting me. So they can enter into agreement to regulate and decide on how to share their property.
Share their property.
Same rules. It must be in writing because surely there can be a dispute.
Right.
It must be signed by the parties. There must be witnesses involved to testify that this was the agreement that the parties entered into.
Right.
Usually, it must be drafted by a lawyer. Because the lawyer will know the technicalities involved, and it involves property. So, general laws regarding property is the lawyers who are experts in it. And then the fifth one is that in that postnuptial agreement, you must also make it clear that you intend to take the matter to court if the party doesn't agree. So you intend the contract to be legally binding if they don't agree to the terms of the contract. I hope you got it. So it's just the same. Just that one is before marriage.
Okay. So when you check all these boxes, does it mean that aside what the contract says, nobody can actually dispute it in terms of, let's say, for example, we can use this, what's the name? What's the guy's name? That guy. We can you can use him as a case study. So instances of that, does it mean that the woman or the wife can also come up with an argument that even though we have been able to endorse or sign this contract, it's null and void. I want some of his property. Is that possible?
Well, you see,
even though it has been an agreement,
if it has been an agreement between parties and that agreement is binding and legally valid, then the court will enforce that agreement, right? So the issue would now relate to divorce and maintenance affairs, especially where the parties divorce. Even in the prenuptial agreement, it can be stated clearly that if it is the man who caused the adultery, if it's the man who divorced the wife because of his adultery, or the wife divorced him because of his adultery, the percentages will change. The sharing of the properties will change. There will be emotional damage. The harassment, the abuse, the embarrassment that maybe is caused to the wife. I even heard that there are some evidence that the wife will even, and they said they even have evidence that she also cheated some.
Oh, that one there we can but instances of that. So it means that it's not only about what is on paper.
Yeah, most of the time in court, especially on divorce based on adultery, they can even call that the party who you did the adultery to come and testify against you, because they want the divorce to be based on the fact that probably a person cheated, and so that dynamics of the relationship have changed. So that particular previous agreement, we should amend it. We should give me more property because you caused an embarrassment to the marriage. I hope you are getting it. It took me through trauma. It took me through emotional damage. Pay me maintenance. Pay me compensation. You get it. So they enter into such agreement. So a wife can come and say, look, now that you've committed adultery and I have the evidence, let me call my lawyer. Let's draft a new agreement that we want a divorce in the future, but this is the particular type of properties that we want to share amongst ourselves. It's possible.
It's possible.
Yes.
It's possible.
So there are many circumstances and all that surrounding such events. Yes.
Okay. So we have been getting these stories from outside or even here in Ghana that some people would say, look, I would want to register my property in my mother's name.
Yes.
In my father's name. Does it also hold water? I want to know.
Now, it also depends on the circumstances of the case.
Okay.
If you deliberately register property in someone else's name,
it's my choice,
right? But if you do that to escape your obligation,
my brother,
to
it's
provide,
my choice. I decided to register my.
Especially when it comes to divorce, right? You know how men are fast. When it comes to divorce, all the money in the bank account, they'll just go and remove everything and start going and buying properties for their family. They'll gift the brother, the sister, the uncle, the wife, the mother, all the money. They'll give it as gifts. So actually, the court can even order an injunction that whilst we are having deliberations or proceedings on the divorce, do not sell your property. Do not buy any property.
But if it was sold before these court issues came up.
Oh, if it was sold before these court issues
came up. Maybe you saw the storm coming from afar.
Oh,
and you decided
then that's another
escape.
thing. Remember, as I said, in the Lands Act, once it is joint property, before you sell or transact the joint property, you have to make sure that the spouse has knowledge and has consented to it. Okay. So she can come. I'm usually using she because I'm a male, so I'm saying that the wife can come and state that, look, he sold the property or he transferred the property to his brother without informing me. And the property was joint property.
Right.
So you see, remember our first argument. If it's individual property, you can do whatever you want with your individual property. But if it is property acquired during marriage, it is presumed to be joint property. So how you deal with the property, the first rule is that your spouse, that is for me, my wife, must have an informed consent or permission to, the particular dealing that you want to enter into. So if you transfer it to your brother or sister as a gift without informing your wife, then she can take legal action. I hope you got it. Yes.
I see. I mean, if you are watching this program, kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is Billcotey, and this is Legal Matters with Billcotey. I'm telling you, we're having a wonderful conversation here with the lawyer himself, our legal expert here, and it's a wonderful conversation we're having. Okay, so let me touch on this one too. Can property be taken from you if you are not married to the person in cases where the person dies? If you are not married to the person, but you who are cohabitating, and you die, can a property be taken from you to be given to the other party?
So first of all, this is why marriage is very important, because marriage creates rights for the other party.
Okay.
Under marriage, when the property is acquired, when they are staying together as husband and wife, it is joint property.
Right.
So no one else can come and acquire it. I hope you are getting me. Upon certain.
So you are telling me that Funny Face and Vanessa, that they are not married. I learned they are not married. It means that Vanessa can't go for any property in case this is not in case of death, but even
what she can apply is for property that will be enough to provide reasonable maintenance for her and the child.
Okay.
I hope you got it.
Okay.
Not property claiming that she was married to him and they have a joint interest in any of his properties.
Right. No, cohabitating.
Cohabitating. If you can show that in the cohabitation you contributed to the person's property. You supported him in acquiring the property. Either you
emotionally.
Yes. So there's physical. There's financial support and there's also emotional.
Senior lawyer, you let people come and beat you over.
No. Domestic support. Domestic support is actually contribution.
Okay.
Right. It was stated in this case, mensa and mensa. Domestic support is contribution towards marriage. So if the wife stays in the house and you are cohabiting, so you are not even married, but she was able to contribute towards you acquiring businesses. You know how women are. She will take care of the family. She was even paying some of the fees and then taking care of the kids and all that. And you acquired properties.
Right.
Then why not? She has a share in the property.
Even though you guys are not married.
It's not a 50-50 thing.
Even though you guys are not married.
Yes, even though you are not married. Even though you are not married.
I see.
Right? Because she can argue that.
But on what merit would they use to measure the duration of cohabitating, because everybody can come up with an argument that look, I stayed with him for a month. That's cohabitating, right?
No. So obviously they'll look at the term of the cohabitation and where when the property was acquired. So if
during you guys cohabitating,
you acquired the property.
The man acquired the property.
Perfect. So if you're cohabiting for let's say 1 month, obviously how did you contribute to his acquisition of the property? Was it money that you gave? Was it sex, domestic labor, family? No, it's not enough for a month. I hope you got me. But in Ghana, there are many people who cohabit and even have children over 30, 40 years. There was no legally binding marriage, but even under custom, you could assume that obviously this is the husband or wife of the person. So that's why when the person dies, they call upon the other spouse to come and lead the funeral rites and all that. I mean, come and also participate in the funeral rites most of the time, right? And including the family members and the family head and all that. So all these factors are taken into consideration by the court. It's on a case by case basis, right? Cohabitation for a long period of time can even transform into a form of informal marriage under customary law. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So there are so many factors involved in this. There are really a lot of factors involved in this. So
I see.
Just the parties have to fully express, and evidence is very important. So even the time of cohabitation, you must be able to provide evidence that we started staying together from this period. How? Maybe we bought this house together, or he bought the house and I stayed with him for 5-10 years. Right. And he told me that I should also stay at home and take care of the kids and everything, so that you have enough time to do business. I hope you got it. And that is from the contributions of the business he used to acquire other properties, and he bought new property. So she will have an interest in those new property, because it's the right to maintenance, especially if kids or offsprings in the marriage are involved. So that's how it basically works.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to ask this question. In case you marry a different person, you've stayed with one person for a while, and let's say you stayed with one person for, let's say, 5-6 years, or even 10 years, and you decide to marry somebody else. Does the person get any compensation for it, in terms of property, sharing some of the property?
So there are two aspects to this. The person can sue for breach of promise to marry. There's something known as breach of promise to marry.
And so can be compensated with property?
Well, you are compensated damages known as financial compensation. So the person can attach your property and sell it for financial compensation. So the court can award 30,000 cedis, 100,000 cedis, 50,000 cedis for compensation due to breach of promise to marry. I hope you got it. And there are so many cases like a champion and a champion, a very landmark case where the person promised to marry the wife under ordinance. So they had entered into the customary marriage, what people refer to as the engagement, the traditional wedding. And then he had promised there for a long period of time that they would move into the ordinance. They'll go and do the white wedding. So over 4 or 5 years, they weren't marrying. And then she later on decided to sue him for breach of promise to marry. So the promise he made to marry her under the ordinance, give her a white wedding, he didn't fulfill it. So the court held that, look, if you look at the length of the promise and the fact that this person banged her productive years on being your wife, staying with you because you promised to marry her, right? She has lost her youth, right? Her youthfulness. She has lost her productive years. So you deserve to be sued for compensation. You have to pay the lady compensation for that particular breach of promise to marry. So yes, there's that concept. The second concept is that you cannot stay with someone for 5-10 years, right? Put the person up to a certain level of standard of living, and then just decide to abandon the person. I hope you got it. So the person can also, take actions for a sort of compensation or maintenance package, especially where children are involved. So that one too is a whole, conversation on its own. Maintenance, especially with kids, right? They call them baby mamas, if I may say so. Some men have baby mamas. That means they slept with the lady, she has a baby. So yes, and then that's the baby mama. He marries another person. The baby mama says, okay, I'm not bothered. Just pay me maintenance for the child, and the fact that I'm going to take care of the child, and this child will be attached to me forever. The man will pay maintenance. The court will even order the man to pay maintenance. So if it's property, it's not really having a share of the property, but the property can be sold to provide maintenance for the wife and for the kids. I mean, for the baby mama or for the lady and for the kids. I'm using lady here because I'm a man, so I'm just talking about the opposite sex here.
Okay. Very last question. Okay. Let me ask this question. Instances where you and your wife, you guys are divorced, you guys are no more, and the case is taken to court. Okay, you guys are deliberating on it. And is it possible that your properties that you have, some people, they don't disclose where their properties are. So is it that the court would have to go and investigate and see whether you have this year, that year? Because they say if the woman doesn't know that this is where your property is, she can't actually take that from you.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yes, under the Matrimonial Causes Act. So there's a law in Ghana, in fact, in 1971, all the way back.
Okay.
Yeah, so Matrimonial Causes Act, it provides that the court can give reasonable orders and directions, especially concerning the dissolution of the marriage and the sharing of properties, as well as the payment of maintenance after marriage. So as long as she's able to prove that she's entitled to a portion of the property, the court can direct him to make full disclosure of the property and the interest that he has. Every bank account, he must disclose it. And obviously, if you don't intentionally withhold information from the court, you're actually acting in contempt of court. So you can be ordered to make full disclosure of the properties that you have.
You can actually be ordered.
Yes, you can actually be ordered by the court. So it's not ordered by the spouse, I mean a court order. So that the court will direct you to disclose all the property you have in your possession, right? Usually most of the time acquired during the marriage. So if you disclose it, then they'll be able to assess the reasonable proportion that will give to the other spouse.
So if you don't disclose it, then it will be what?
Contempt of court. Obviously, you are breaching the order of the court, especially when later the person finds out that you intentionally didn't disclose certain property. They can come and even attach those properties. So obviously, the lawyer for the other person, and in my case, let's say the lady, right? The lawyer would have to go and also do his background checks, right? Ask questions, call witnesses, people who the person deals with, ask maybe some questions as to whether there are any properties that he acquired and all that. Also the papers, you can also go to the Lands Commission. There can be an order to go and check for any registered land instruments, right, in the name of the person. But more or less, when they ask you to disclose, the man usually, I mean, in my case, the man will usually simply disclose.
Warranted by the court to
disclose the properties.
No,
yes.
When you go to Lands Commission, it will be warranted by, because
it can be an order. So obviously, more or less, I think that's a matter of last resort. But more or less, when they order you to disclose, you have to disclose. So they don't need to go to the Lands Commission. I hope you got me. But the Lands Commission is a state or a statutory body, so the court can direct it to make certain disclosures to the court. I hope you got me. But under general circumstances, when they order you to disclose and intentionally withhold information, who are you lying to? You're lying to the court. So in that case, you're actually committing an offense, right? And they can even bring certain actions against you for disrespecting the orders of the court. Yes.
Thank you very much. I have really enjoyed this conversation today. This is my head of legal here at Billcotey, and we are having this wonderful conversation. I think we have to draw the curtains down here.
It's been a fruitful conversation.
Very fruitful conversation, and I hope you subscribe to this channel, Legal Matters with Billcotey, your finest. I have this, your gentleman also here. In case you have any illegal problems, also dealing with properties, registration and all that, and ownership of properties and all that, kindly contact Billcotey. The telephone numbers will be on the screens right now. Download the Billcotey app on Google Play Store or App Store. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Wrap up. See you in the next episode. We are going to talk about land registration here in Ghana. Legal, how to register your land here in Ghana legally. Okay, so that you wouldn't have to go through issues when you acquire property. Thank you very much and enjoy your day.
Thank you. Bye.
walking away. Your words are lost on me.